Ask a mechanic what he drives and you won't hear BMW, Mercedes, or Lexus. You'll hear names that don't impress anyone at a dinner party, because after 10 hours under other people's cars, the last thing he wants is to spend his evening under his own. But here's what surprised us. The number one car on this list isn't Japanese, it's a Ford. It costs less than $5,000, and it survived 400,000 miles of taxi abuse. Stay until the end. 13 cars, no premium badges. Let's count up. Number 13, Kia Soul, 2014 to 2019. The Kia Soul is the car that most people dismiss as a toaster on wheels, and the car that mechanics quietly buy for their teenage kids because they know it'll survive 4 years of parking lot curb strikes, forgotten oil changes, and the kind of general vehicular neglect that would kill a lesser car before the first semester is over. RepairPal gives the Soul a reliability rating of 4.0 out of 5.0 with an average annual repair cost of roughly $437. Numbers that place it alongside Honda and Toyota in a segment that starts thousands cheaper. The Soul runs a 2.0-liter, 4-cylinder, producing 164 horsepower through a conventional 6-speed automatic. No CVT, no dual clutch, no turbo. Nothing that adds complexity without adding durability. The engine bay is spacious enough that mechanics can actually see what they're working on without removing half the front end. A detail that sounds minor until you've watched a mechanic spend 45 minutes removing plastic covers just to reach an oil filter on a modern BMW. Parts cost roughly half of what comparable Honda and Toyota components run, and any independent shop can service a Soul without specialized tools or dealer software. You can find clean examples for $6,000 to $12,000. The Soul doesn't look like a mechanic's car. That's exactly why it is one, a toaster that refuses to die. The next car is the single best-selling automobile in human history, and the reason involves a $362 annual repair bill. Number 12, Toyota Corolla, 2014 to 2019. The Toyota Corolla is the best-selling car in the history of the automobile. Over 50 million units worldwide, and the reason mechanics trust it has nothing to do with excitement, performance, or innovation. It has to do with the fact that the Corolla is the closest thing the automotive industry has ever produced to a household appliance that happens to have 4 wheels. RepairPal estimates the average annual repair cost at $362, the lowest of any car on this entire list, with a 7% probability of a severe repair compared to 12% for the industry average. The 2014 to 2019 Corolla runs the 1.8-liter 2 ZRFE 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated, timing chain-driven, port-injected, an engine Toyota has been refining for over a decade across millions of vehicles. No turbo to fail, no direct injection to carbon up, no surprise waiting at 80,000 miles. Mechanics describe the Corolla as the car they see for oil changes and literally nothing else. So predictable that some shops use it as the baseline against which every other car's repair frequency is measured. You can find clean examples for $8,000 to $14,000, less than a high-mileage Civic. For a car that costs the same to maintain and makes you smile every time you take a corner. The Corolla will never make your heart race. It will never turn ahead, and it will never surprise you with a bill you didn't see coming. For a mechanic, that's the highest compliment a car can earn, the automotive appliance. The next car adds something the Corolla deliberately left out, a reason to enjoy driving. Number 11, Mazda 3, 2014 to 2018. The 2014 to 2018 Mazda 3 carries an average annual repair cost of $433, according to RepairPal, and it's the only car on this list that mechanics buy not just because it's reliable, but because they actually enjoy driving it after a long shift. The Mazda 3 is the car for the mechanic who's tired of recommending Corollas all day and wants his own commute to feel less like a punishment for choosing this career. Mazda's Skyactiv 2.5-liter 4-cylinder uses a 13:1 compression ratio, higher than most performance engines, delivering strong fuel economy without a turbocharger, intercooler, or wastegate adding failure points. The 6-speed automatic locks its torque converter above 5 miles per hour, keeping transmission fluid cooler and dramatically extending gearbox life compared to CVT alternatives that competitors push in this class. Consumer Reports gave the 2014 to 2018 powertrain a perfect 5 out of 5 for reliability. One mechanic described the Mazda 3 as the car that costs Corolla money and drives like the mechanic who built it actually liked driving. Higher trims came with leather, a Bose sound system, and a heads-up display. Features buyers expect on $35,000 cars, not $10,000 used compacts. You can find clean examples for $8,000 to $14,000, less than a high-mileage Civic for a car that costs the same to maintain and makes you smile every time you take a corner. Corolla costs with a driver's soul. The next car is ranked number 1 in its entire class, and the engine inside it hasn't changed because Honda already perfected it. Number 10, Honda Accord, 2013 to 2017. 2013 to 2017 Honda Accord is the car mechanics recommend more than any other midsize sedan in the country. RepairPal ranks it number 1 in its class with a 4.5 out of 5.0 reliability rating and an average annual repair cost of $400. Lower than the Camry, the Mazda 6, and every other midsize sedan sold in America during this window. One shop owner put it bluntly, "I've recommended over 1,000 Accords in my career. Nobody's ever come back angry." This generation runs Honda's proven K24 4-cylinder and J35 V6. Both naturally aspirated, both timing chain driven, both documented across millions of Hondas as virtually unkillable with basic maintenance. Mechanics specifically recommend the 2013 to 2017 generation because it predates Honda's switch to the 1.5-liter turbo that introduced oil dilution complaints in cold climates. This is the last naturally aspirated Accord, the final version of a Formula Honda perfected over decades before abandoning it for efficiency. The V6 manual transmission version is quietly becoming a collector piece among enthusiasts who recognize Honda will never build anything like it again. You can find clean examples for $10,000 to $16,000. The number 1 ranked mid-size sedan with the last great naturally aspirated Honda engine for the price of a vacation. When a mechanic stakes his reputation on a recommendation, this is the car that has never made him look bad. The number 1 sedan Honda stopped making. The next car is the default answer to "what should I buy?" and the mechanic doesn't even need to think before saying it. Number 9, Toyota Camry, 2012 to 2017. The 2012 to 2017 Toyota Camry is the car mechanic's default to when someone asks, "what should I buy?" and doesn't have any follow-up preferences. No caveats, no disclaimers, no conditional statements, it just works. RepairPal estimates the average annual repair cost at $388 and the 2.5-liter 2AR-FE 4-cylinder, the engine Toyota finally sorted after fixing earlier oil consumption issues, is the most commonly recommended engine among independent mechanics because every failure mode has already been identified and resolved across millions of prior vehicles. The V6 version, the 2GR-FE 3.5-liter, is the specific trim mechanics buy for themselves when they want a quiet highway cruiser that happens to produce 268 horsepower and costs less to maintain than most 4-cylinder competitors. Both engines use timing chains that never need scheduled replacement, eliminating the single most expensive maintenance item that belt-driven rivals require. You can find clean examples for $10,000 to $16,000. Mechanics stake their professional reputation on recommendations, and the Camry is the recommendation that has never once backfired, the car equivalent of telling someone to drink more water. It's boring advice. It's correct advice. And the mechanic who gives it sleeps soundly knowing nobody will call him at midnight with a breakdown story. The Camry is the only car where "it's fine" is the mechanic's most enthusiastic endorsement, the safest recommendation in the industry. The next car is Korean, costs less than everything above it, and has quietly earned mechanics' respect without anyone noticing. Number 8, Hyundai Sonata, 2015 to 2019. The 2015 to 2019 Hyundai Sonata is the car that mechanics started recommending quietly about 5 years ago. Not loudly, not enthusiastically, but with the specific kind of cautious professional nod that means, "I've been watching this car for a while and nothing's gone wrong yet, so I'm comfortable telling you to buy one." RepairPal estimates the annual repair cost at $468 with a reliability rating that places it solidly in the middle of the midsize sedan pack. Not spectacular, but genuinely competitive against the Camry and Accord that dominate the conversation. The 2.4-liter Theta 2 engine in this generation requires an important caveat. Early Hyundai and Kia Theta engines had documented bearing failures that triggered massive recalls. The 2015 to 2019 Sonata specifically benefits from the engineering corrections Hyundai implemented in response. Updated bearings, improved oil flow, and extended warranty coverage that in some cases reaches lifetime for the original owner. Mechanics who track these patterns regard the post-fix Sonata as a genuinely solid vehicle that costs $4,000 to $6,000 less than a comparable Camry with functionally similar reliability. You can find clean examples for $8,000 to $14,000, less than a high-mileage Civic for a car that costs the same to maintain and makes you smile every time you take a corner. The Sonata is the car that Korea built to prove it could compete, and the mechanics who've been watching it for 5 years have quietly decided it succeeded. Korea's quiet entry into the trust circle. The next car was called the sedan BMW wishes it still made, and it costs less than a Civic. Number 7. Mazda 6, 2014 to 2021. The 2014 to 2021 Mazda 6 is the mid-size sedan that automotive journalists kept calling the one to buy, and American buyers kept ignoring because the badge didn't say Honda or Toyota. RepairPal estimates the average annual repair cost at $481, and one mechanic who drives a 2016 Mazda 6 himself described it as the car that made me stop automatically recommending Camrys to everyone who walked in. Mazda's Skyactiv 2.5-liter four-cylinder uses the same naturally aspirated, high-compression ratio philosophy as the Mazda 3. No turbo, no direct injection carbon buildup, no CVT, paired with a conventional 6-speed automatic that mechanics describe as the last great traditional gearbox in the mid-size sedan class. The 2015 to 2017 models are the specific years mechanics target. They predate the cylinder deactivation system Mazda added in 2018, which introduces hydraulic lifters and solenoids that can wear over time. Without that system, the 2015 to 2017 Mazda 6 has nothing extra to break, just a naturally aspirated engine, a conventional transmission, and a driving experience that genuinely rivals BMW's, costing 3 times as much. A significant chunk of these models were assembled at Mazda's Hofu plant in Japan, identifiable by VYNs starting with J, a facility with legendary quality standards. You can find clean examples for $8,000 to $15,000. The Mazda 6 is the car that proves you don't have to choose between cheap maintenance and an enjoyable drive. You just have to ignore what everyone else is buying. The sedan BMW wishes it still made. The next car is the smallest, cheapest, and most underrated daily driver mechanics have ever loved. Number 6. Honda Fit, 2007 to 2020. The Honda Fit is the car mechanics drive when nobody's watching, the vehicle equivalent of the chef's meal after the restaurant closes, made with whatever's reliable rather than whatever's impressive. The Fit weighs roughly 2,500 pounds, runs a 1.5-liter four-cylinder, producing 130 horsepower, costs almost nothing to insure, and returns fuel economy numbers that make hybrid owners feel slightly foolish about the premium they paid for a battery they'll eventually have to replace. RepairPal estimates the Fit's annual repair cost at approximately $390, lower than the Civic, the Corolla, and nearly every other car on this list. And the magic seat system that Honda engineered into the interior makes the Fit more practically useful than sedans twice its size. The rear seats fold flat, fold up, and fold in configurations that allow mechanics to carry everything from a set of tires to a transmission jack in a car the size of a shopping cart. The engine, Honda's L15 series, is naturally aspirated, timing chain driven, and has been refined across millions of units with a documented reliability that matches anything Honda produces in a larger package. Mechanics buy Fits because they're cheap, practical, and almost impossible to kill. You can find clean examples for $5,000 to $12,000. The Fit is the car nobody brags about and everybody should own. The car nobody brags about. The next car has been running for 300,000 miles on a battery that pessimists said would die at 100,000. Number 5, Toyota Prius, 2004 to 2015. The Toyota Prius is the car that every mechanic said would be an expensive nightmare once the hybrid battery died, and then watched in professional humiliation as the battery didn't die. Or when it did, it cost $1,500 to replace, instead of the $5,000 that the internet had been predicting since 2004. The Prius has quietly become one of the most reliable and cheapest to own vehicles mechanics have ever tracked. And the number of mechanics who now own one is climbing steadily, a trend that would have been unthinkable a decade ago when "but the battery" was the universal mechanic objection. RepairPal estimates the Prius's average annual repair cost at $408, and the 1.5-liter and 1.8-liter Atkinson cycle engines paired with Toyota's hybrid Synergy drive have been documented crossing 300,000 miles with nothing more than oil changes and the occasional brake pad, which, thanks to regenerative braking, last roughly twice as long as conventional brakes. Taxi operators in New York City and San Francisco ran Prius fleets past 400,000 miles, proving the hybrid system's durability in the most punishing urban driving environment on Earth. You can find clean second-generation and third-generation examples for $5,000 to $12,000. The mechanics who spent years warning customers away from the Prius are now quietly buying them for themselves. The most honest retraction the automotive industry has ever witnessed. The car mechanics said would fail and then bought when it didn't. The next car is the personal daily of more mechanics than any other sedan in America. Number 4, Honda Civic 2012 to 2015. The 2012 to 2015 Honda Civic is the car mechanics drive as a personal daily when they want something reliable, fuel-efficient, and engaging enough to make a 20-minute commute feel like less of a waste of their limited free time. The 9th-generation Civic runs the 1.8-liter R18 four-cylinder, naturally aspirated, no turbo, no direct injection, through a transmission so reliable that one mechanic described it as the gearbox I've never had to think about, which is the only thing I want from a gearbox. RepairPal estimates the Civic's average annual repair cost at $368, making it the second cheapest car to maintain on this entire list after the Corolla. Mechanics specifically favor this generation because it predates Honda's switch to the 1.5-liter turbo engine that introduced oil dilution complaints in colder climates, a trade-off that adds marginal horsepower while subtracting the long-term reliability that mechanics value above all else. The naturally aspirated 9th-generation Civic is the last version that embodies Honda's original philosophy. Make it simple, make it light, make it last, and don't add anything that doesn't make it better at those three things. You can find clean examples for $7,000 to $13,000. The Civic is the car that mechanics drive to work, park behind the shop, and forget about, because forgetting about your car means it never gives you a reason to remember. The mechanic's personal daily. The next car is a full-size V6 American sedan, and it's the most surprising entry on this list so far. Number 3, Chevrolet Impala 2014 to 2020. The 2014 to 2020 Chevrolet Impala is the entry on this list that makes people stop and say, "Wait, a Chevy?" And the entry that mechanics respond to by asking, "Have you actually looked at the data on this car?" The 10th generation Impala runs GM's 3.6-liter LFX V6, a naturally aspirated engine producing 305 horsepower. That, after GM resolved the timing chain issues from the 2010 to 2012 versions, became one of the most reliable V6 engines in the American automotive industry. Police departments and rental fleets ran these engines past 200,000 miles as routine, and multiple documented examples have exceeded 225,000 miles without major powertrain failure. The Impala does 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds, legitimately quick for a full-size sedan. And its 6-speed automatic includes a drain plug that makes fluid changes as straightforward as oil changes, a detail that mechanics appreciate because it means the transmission can be properly maintained rather than sealed and forgotten until it fails. You can find clean 2018 examples with 60,000 miles for $12,000 to $17,000. Full-size sedan room, V6 power, and proven fleet durability for compact car pricing. The Impala is the car that proves reliability isn't a Japanese monopoly. It's an engineering choice that any manufacturer can make when they decide to stop overcomplicating things. A Chevy on a mechanic's trust list. and it earned its spot. The next car carries the same engine as a Lexus ES350, and nobody buys it because the average owner is 67 years old. Number 2. Toyota Avalon 2013 to 2018. The 2013 to 2018 Toyota Avalon is the car your financially independent uncle drives. One who retired early, paid off his house, and doesn't care what anyone thinks about his vehicle because the math made sense years ago and still does today. The Avalon runs the 2 GRFE 3.5-liter V6. The same engine that powers the Lexus ES350, the Camry V6, and half of Toyota's luxury lineup. Documented across millions of vehicles reaching 500,000 miles on nothing more than oil changes and a timing chain that never needs replacement. Nobody under 60 buys the Avalon, and that demographic reality has cratered its used prices to levels that mechanics find genuinely offensive. RepairPal estimates the annual repair cost at $463, less than a Honda Civic, for a near-luxury full-size sedan with more legroom than a Mercedes E-Class, smoother ride quality than any modern crossover, and the same Lexus engine that costs $8,000 more when it wears the Lexus badge. The mechanic who recommends the Avalon always adds the same qualifier. Find one owned by an old person. They garage them, service them on time, and drive conservatively. A Grandma Avalon with 60,000 miles is practically brand new. You can find clean examples for $12,000 to $19,000. A Lexus engine at a Toyota price, and nobody buys it. The number 1 car on this list isn't Japanese at all. It's a Ford that survived 400,000 miles of taxi abuse and costs less than a used iPhone. Number 1. Ford Crown Victoria, 1998 to 2011. The number 1 car on this list isn't a Toyota, it isn't a Honda, it isn't a Mazda. It's a Ford AM, and every mechanic in America knows exactly why, because they've watched this car survive the single most destructive ownership scenario in the automotive industry, and come out the other side still running perfectly. The Ford Crown Victoria, specifically the Police Interceptor variant, logged 400,000 to 500,000 miles in New York City taxi fleets, police departments, and government motor pools across the country, enduring 24-hour shift cycles, idle times that would destroy most modern engines, and the kind of sustained daily abuse that no manufacturer would ever willingly submit their product to. The 4.6-liter modular Phi 8 is a cast iron block engine with forged connecting rods and tolerances so conservative that the motor barely works during normal driving. It has so much reserve capacity that highway cruising feels like the engine is taking a nap. The 4-speed automatic is crude by modern standards, but essentially unbreakable. Every junkyard in America has parts for one, which means repairs cost almost nothing. You can buy a retired police unit for $2,000 to $5,000 with a proven 400,000-mile service life already documented. No premium badge, no luxury pretense, just a V8 that survived 500,000 miles of taxi abuse for the price of a decent bicycle. That's why it's number 1. The people who fix cars for a living trust a $3,000 Ford more than a $60,000 anything, and the data says they're right. 13 cars. No BMW. No Mercedes, no Lexus, a Korean toaster, a Japanese appliance, a Chevy that shocks everyone, and a $3,000 Ford that beat them all. The mechanic doesn't care about your badge, the mechanic cares what breaks. These 13 don't. Which one's in your driveway? Comments. Subscribe. The next list covers the cars mechanics say to run from.